It's accessible, reliable, affordable, and convenient. Jamono Money Transfer is affiliated with Ajay Guaranteed Trust Bank Limited, Mega Bank, Apps, Reliance Bank, and many others. You can send and receive your monies from friends and families both home and abroad through Jamono branches at various strategic locations in the country with high standard customer service. Please walk into any nearest Jamono branch for efficient and timely service delivery. For more information, you can visit its headquarters at Bursabi, right opposite AfriMed International Hospital, or call on the following numbers: +220 3103 050, +220 3103 051, or +220 3755 522.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this very important press conference. After the parliamentary elections, the Central Committee of this party was tasked with the responsibility to map the political landscape. That work is still not complete, but there is pressure coming from some members that there is a need to hold such a press conference because there is a vacuum in the political situation in the country. So even though we have not completed what we have started doing, we accepted to have this press conference to clear the air. At least so many people have been approaching us. Even yesterday, somebody came here to say, you must come out to speak. You must come out with force. He was saying this. And he was not the only one, there are many people. So we feel that, yes, we'll come out to speak, even though we have spoken louder than anybody in this country. So today's press conference is designed to put some clarity into the current political situation and to begin a new process of speaking with the Gambian people. So without much ado, I would ask Khalifa to come and do his presentation. Thank you very much, Khalifa.
Thank you. Of the Central Committee has explained what we are charged to do. This is closing a chapter. Of a beginning which started on the 2nd of December 2016, and ended with the presidential elections of 2021. A new chapter is beginning and started on the 19th of January 2022, when the person elected in the presidential elections of 2021 assumed office. The Gambian people are asking for a conversation. And Pdois has the institutional memory, having been here in the First Republic, Second Republic, and a transition that no one expected. It is well suited to open up this new conversation on the way forward for the Gambian people. We are not here out of our own volition, because I have a transitional role. I've already indicated what is best suited for the political situation as far as my person is concerned. It is now left to the Central Committee to ultimately decide when it is best to carry out such a wish. But we met and engaged in vigorous conversation within ourselves to find out why Pdois is where it is, whether it is relevant for it to exist, an existential question. And having lived long enough and served long enough, it is no longer an academic exercise for us. It's a life and death question for the party and life and death question for this nation. So our conversation is not an ordinary one. And we would have wanted to wait until we complete our exercise before facing you. But within our ranks, it was made clear that the Gambian people are still in need of a voice, of clarity, to be able to make sense of what is happening. From our own point of view, you have a government. You elected that government. We are a government in waiting. If you desire to entrust your powers to us, it is the government that is elected that should be speaking and explaining. For us, we should hold it into account on what it is doing. But it is for you to examine whether the promises are being fulfilled and prepare yourself for another election. Because you own this country and you entrust power just for a time. And you have the power to make those you elect to render accounts. That is the democratic culture. We mentioned as early as 19 January 2022 that we were beginning this new journey and that we will not be silent in gauging, scrutinizing, and restraining the government in office to do what is in line with the aspirations of the people. So there's no need to be in a hurry. We are going to be there, speaking as we have always done in the interests of the Gambian people. But to us, and maybe to many, we see that the government in office is more engaged in trial and error form of governance than a strategic one directed by a transformative agenda. It's an opinion. They may wish to disagree, but we want a fresh conversation, a constructive one. They can engage us in a debate on the issue. And that's what Pdois intends to do in this coming 4 years, going to 5. To begin to put the issues on the fore and for debates to take place so that the Gambian people will be clear regarding the future of their lives and that of their children and children's children. But while trial and error, the first act of this government is to establish what it called a caretaker government. We indicated that that is a foreign language to our constitution. It does not speak the language of the Gambian constitution. The Gambian constitution is clear under section 63. Number one, that the term of office of the president is 5 years. Subsection 2, that the term of a president starts, incoming president starts, when the term of the outgoing president ends. The current president was the incumbent. As soon as he assumes office, that assumption of office indicates that the previous term ends.
Are you worried about the delay in the delivery of your remittances? Jamono Money Transfer is your only solution with more than 9 years experience in remittances services. It's accessible.
She could exercise directly or indirectly through vice presidents and ministers. So when the term of a president ends, the term of all those appointed to indirectly exercise executive power also ends. So from our own perspective, governance must be based on fundamental instruments. And if you don't know those instruments and you cannot safeguard them, and you cannot be guided, then something is wrong. From our own perspective, we have followed the developments. You should know what type of country you want. And those we elect should tell us what type of country they want to build. They should convince us that the type of country they want to build is fit for us to live in. That is their duty. Again, express under section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution that authority is derived from our consent, the consent of you, the sovereign Gambian people. And it should be exercised to promote your general welfare. And it is very clear under section 26 of the Constitution that we have rights. And one of the fundamental political rights is to take part in the running of public affairs. We, the Gambian people, we should take part in the running of public affairs. We should participate in genuine elections. But we also have right to equal services on equal terms. That is why you have a budget. 2021, we were informed that up to 25 billion would be mobilized for our welfare. It was clear that we depend on taxation and non-tax revenue. But out of 13.7 billion, 12 billion from taxation, only about 1.5, 12.2, 1.5 from non-tax revenue. So the productive base of your economy is very, very narrow. Agriculture contributes, they said, 18% of GDP. Manufacturing or industry, 20% of GDP. And services, 58%. The other 7% from other sources. But look at your agricultural sector. When the government was being supported out of goodwill, that 2016 marked a transformation in Gambian politics. Never in the history of this country had change ever come through the ballot box since 18 February 1965 until 2nd December 2016. And it came about under very difficult circumstances, which the world understood. And this country earned the goodwill of the whole world. Consequently, a lot of project grant, budget support. And the dream was that this was going to continue. So consequently, they had mighty plans. Almost 29 billion in expenditure for 2022 as a plan in 2021. But without the building of the productive base of the economy, you will just simply rely on taxation and grants. And when the economy is not growing, businesses are not earning more, if you impose tax on them, you make them to collapse. So there is a limit to the tax base as a source of revenue. And if you don't have no building of your non-tax revenue base, then you have to rely on grants and loans for, let's not even call it survival, because that will not lead you to survive. Let's say for vegetation. I'm selecting my words. Because in 2021, there was over $81 billion debt burden. And it is very clear in government policy that they can no longer take loans with very high interest rates and short duration. So the loan package has also become limited. COVID-19 enabled the country to even push the payment of the debts forward, debt servicing forward. But now it is going to catch up with us. So you have to deal with the realities of our economy. And that is why you had to have a revised budget. It is important then for you to realize that the major illness of our economy is the absence of injection of investment in the productive base, so as to ensure that we earn more by our own will and might than to depend on international assistance. We have reviewed what was promised in 2021 by relying on subsidies to be able to provide fertilizer and then increase what was the market price for granules. Many people felt that this was going to be permanent. But what became the reality? Fertilizer went to 2,000 rather than 700, and most farmers cannot afford it. And what does the government have to say? Ukraine. That the war in Ukraine is what has made the price of fertilizer to rise up, and they cannot do anything about it. If you cannot do anything about the problems of the people, then you should really also accept and that, well, it is the people to decide that. Because you will not decide that for yourself, whether you should be there or not. But that is the essence. Now let's look at a farmer in Palen who understood Pdois' message and how he influenced the village to be able to address the problems of production. These farmers decided to contribute almost like an osusu and save the money in the bank. 6 years before this farming season, they used to take that money and give each family head 2 bags of fertilizer. And then you continue to work, and when you sell your crop, you pay without interest. They did this for 5 years. First year, 2 bags. Second year, 4 bags. Third year, 5 bags. And it goes on that way. But this farming season, the price of fertilizer went to $2,000. And they could only give those people 2 bags instead of the 6 bags based on what was incremental in their earning capacity. And they too are being told that Ukraine is the problem. So you go to even the farming community now, Ukraine war is an issue. But let's look at simple economics. Every input in production will reflect in the cost of the product, and in marketing, that cost will reflect. So the 2,000 you spend on fertilizer used in farming, ultimately the groundnut crop should also yield an equivalent sum that will take into consideration what was spent. So if you have planners who are indeed planners, they should be able to envisage the production level, the international prices for the crop. And a government which wants production to be boosted up would not hesitate subsidizing the $2,000 fertilizer, so the production will go and capture that in the sale of the crop. What makes that impossible? So essentially, governments must be governments of thinkers. That's why governments are governments. In direct exercise of power by the people. Why should I give you my might to exercise if you cannot serve me? Therefore, our problem is not Ukraine. Our problem is us, is policy. is our capacity to understand our problems and find solutions for them. You look at Gambia, we are importing most of the things that we are consuming. In 2020 alone, over 1.2 billion in terms of cereals, over 2 billion in terms of rice. We're importing eggs, we're importing potatoes, we're importing onions. We have a very fine weather. We don't have snow like Ukraine or Russia. We have waterways everywhere, underground water sources. Others will come and go to a farming community, sign contract with them, and they'll yield their land. They'll use the same farmers to go and grow bananas, export it, and make millions. And the alcalos of our villages and our village development committees will be sharing pittance and continue to cry about the lack of boreholes. They'll have to seek charity from the south, from that fund, to be able to have boreholes. But somebody else is using our land to sell bananas outside, make foreign exchange, and does not need charity to build the boreholes or use any facility that is necessary to sprinkle their farm. And we claim that we are independent, but we cannot think for ourselves. Use our own resources for our own development. We have sand mining. They call it sand, rutile, ilmenite, zircon. How many years? They said your mobile phones need these things to be made. So it means that this resource is needed for eternity. How much do we have? Is it restricted to that area alone? Who is doing any form of prospecting to know what we have? For decades, First Republic, Second Republic, that some claim, they were doing better, So you compare the first and the second and no republic. So you compare governments instead of examining the state of existence. People, how are we living? How did we live in the past? How did we live in the Second Republic? How are we living now? This is what Pdois has been examining and giving you answers that no one dared to challenge. The only challenge I ever have, and I don't want to really bring certain things and lower our press conference chair, stop me if I want to go further. There's somebody saying that he's a capitalist at a debate. So if you have money, what has that got to do with the poor farmer and the worker? How can a capitalist president feed farmers and workers? To share his property? How can that person enable the farmers, workers to get the means of production? Or the small scale, medium size, large size enterprises to be able to get the capital they need. the personality of a person have to do with policy. But this is the problem of our politics. It's not about personality. It is about